Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jacqui Wilson, and today's guest is an RN paramedic who owns a home care business for the elderly. However, her other passion is poetry and music. As she says, I put my poetry to music. And as she goes about her daily job, others always know there is something different about her. That's because she wants people to see her walking with Jesus and living her life for God. As a patient is receiving care at a hospital, you just may hear her melodic voice flowing through the hospital halls. Welcome to today's guest, Geri Grooms. Welcome, Geri.
Hey. Hi, how you doing?
So excited to have you
Thank you.
here to talk about what you're doing, not only with your patients, but with your music and how you're combining those to create a great health environment for those you work with.
It's funny that you would say that. I actually have gotten into a lot of music writing gospel. I don't write anything but gospel, but talking about doing patients and stuff, I'm actually an RN paramedic and have been flight nursing and things like that and all over the country. Well, now before pandemic, I went to the nursing homes and roller skated and put on shows for the little elderly there. So that's how I incorporate my music with the elderly at this point. I don't really get to do that in the home with my home care business. So I just incorporate it with, I lead worship at my church and I play piano at my church. So that's where I use my music mostly. So.
That sounds so good. Can you tell people how you started in music? Was this a passion from when you were younger? What drove you to music?
I never even knew I could sing till I was around 25 years old.
Wow.
I had a jail ministry and I bought a little keyboard and I asked somebody to teach me how to play a song because I wanted to lead worship in the jails. And so they taught me how to do 3 chords and I sing that song. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He is so good to me. That's all I knew. And I would take that keyboard up to the jail, and it was like 2 flights of stairs, and I would plug it in and I would play that song. And then the next week I'd play another song. And that's how I got started in playing music. I didn't even know how to play. I asked somebody to show me how to play the chords so that I could lead worship at the jail. And that's how it all started.
Wow, that's an amazing story because often we talk about how God will expand your territory in ministry, and where you started with something else, God allowed you to go into another aspect of ministry just because you were being obedient to his call on your life.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I was walking out of the jail and songwriting never even occurred to me until I was walking out of the jail one night, and I ministered to the women. And I was walking out and I just started singing, Mother, why do you cry for your wayward children? And then all of a sudden the song came out, Our Wayward Children, and the whole song. And then I went to somebody, I said, how do I play this chord? How do I play that chord? And that's how I started songwriting, is that song right there. It was a cry from the mother's heart, and also to give her peace to know that God was going to take care of her babies. And that song's really touching.
And you can understand that because you're a mother and grandmother yourself.
I am. Yes, I am. Yep. I've got 2 children and they're up in their 40s now. So they're getting older. I've got grandkids now. So yeah, you worry about your kids your whole life, and it's very hard on you. So yeah, that song really means a lot. It talks about alcoholic daughters and drug addict sons and things like that. So it's just very real, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the other things that you write about are gratitude, sacrificing yourself to the Lord. Also, you talk about forgiveness. What is driving those types of messages in your life?
Well, leading worship at church, puts you into a different mindset but when I sit down at a keyboard, I don't even have any music. I just start playing things and I'll start singing to the Lord. The Bible talks about singing to the Lord a new song.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly coming up with a new song for him. And I'll just, whatever happens, like one day I was just so gracious and I just started saying gratitude for all you've done for me. And it's such a small little simple chorus, but it's so fabulous, and a sacrifice I make to you, because when I go to church and I start leading worship, I say it's an audience of one. It's an audience of one. It's an audience of one. And I'm going to write that song someday that says, because we're not there to let anybody else see us. We're not there to make a show or let anybody else hear us sing. I'm there as my Lord is an audience of one. And I get so emotional when I know that he is my audience and he is with me. And when I sing to him, I know he's listening. That's a big deal. So gratitude, sacrifice, things like that are very important to me because he is important to me. I thought I had a stroke about a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. I can't remember. It was right before pandemic. And I said, my thing was I didn't want to have a stroke, not because I didn't want to die, but because I felt like I hadn't worshiped him enough. I felt like that there was so much more of me that needed to give to him. And I did not want to stand before him and not have stood before him now, then, where you cannot. It's like the little thing that says, don't give me flowers when I'm dead if you didn't give me flowers when I'm alive.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about my worship to the Lord, is if I don't worship him now, how can I stand before him and worship him in heaven? And so I was afraid that I had not done enough, not in works, but in my worship. It's him being my audience. Yeah. And that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, and I think people forget that we truly are singing to an audience, for one, while we're sitting in church and we're singing, and it is to bring in the spirit. That's part of what we're supposed to do. But ultimately, as the Bible says, what we do to one, we are doing it unto the Lord. And
that's right.
It's truly amazing that you are focusing in on that you are worshiping for one, because it all connects with how we are supposed to go through life as saved people, as Christians.
Yes, absolutely. And think of it as when you're standing on stage and you have a job, quote, a job to do, your mindset is you always want to do the best job that you can for the pastor, for the church, what they expect out of you, what the pastor expects out of you, what God expects out of you. But in essence, whenever it gets down to it and I stand up there and I put my hands on my keyboard, I say, you are my audience.
Yeah.
You are my audience. And people say, why don't you look out more? I said, because you're not my audience.
Right.
My Father is my audience. And just because I'm up here on stage, bringing everybody else into the throne room, which is the gift that God has given me, and it's not a job, it's a gift that God has given me. I use that and I take that audience and I filter myself to him, no matter who's around or what distractions are in church or anything like that. I just know that I'm supposed to be one with him, and that's what I look for in the music part.
Yeah, and I think it keeps us humble,
I do,
because these are gifts and talents and abilities that God has given to us. We haven't given these to ourselves. The only way we can expand it is by being obedient. Then he still has to decide how much we are going to receive of that, how much we can personally handle. So I absolutely love that concept of singing to a God of one. So you regularly write songs, you write poems. You start with writing poems, and then eventually you put those poem lyrics to songs, and then and you share it. What are some other places that you share your music?
We have a group here called West Tennessee Players Resource. It's WTPR, and we are trying to make enough money to sponsor children in music. So we just got a banjo given to us the other night to give away. We bought a violin to give away. Looking into paying for music lessons for children. It's about kids. It's about the arts and things like that, to bring the music into, that's a lost art, the music part in schools. Some of the schools they don't have that part. And that part kept me from getting in trouble my whole life. I loved, I played in the band, so I played saxophone. So I was in music, my whole life because of band. But we feel at WTBR that we have got to give back to the children, because they can't afford the lessons. They can't afford the instruments and things like that. We have somebody that actually repairs them. Somebody gives us their old instruments out of their closets, and we take them to this guy, and he repairs them, and then we give them away, and things like that. So this banjo we're going to give away, this violin we're going to give away here in Ginger County, and that's what we're doing, giving back to. I want to say something about going back to the desire part. The gifts and the things like that, because I don't want to get that lost. When Bible says God gives us the desires of our hearts, and a lot of people think that's the desire. I desire to sing. I desire to have a car. I desire to have a good career, whatever. But I look at it like God gives me that desire to have those things. So he gave me the desire to be a musician. He gave me the desire to want to worship him in one. He gives me that desire. He gives us desires, and we think we have those ideas. We think that that's our idea and our desire. No, that's his desire for us to be one with him and to give back to him in love and hugging and just worshiping him. So I wanted to go back to that, because I will forget to say that. And that was very important.
And I think I think that's important to point out. That those desires are in us. And I think a lot of times, though, we miss out on those desires because we're not in communion with him as we should be.
Totally. I totally agree. And with this WTPR, what we do there, that has really allowed me to bring forth more music, because I have a place to sing and a venue to sing. I've played in different kinds of country bands and rock bands and all that stuff. And I was a regular at Buck Owens Crystal Palace and Bakersfield and things like that. So, but my love, I would try to sit down and write a country song. It will not happen. I will try to write some kind of upbeat, peppy thing. It's not going to happen. I'm a ballad gospel girl. That is what I do.
All right. Now you got to tell people how they can connect with you.
Basically, I don't have Twitter. I don't have any of the platforms like everybody else did. And but just Facebook on Geri Grooms Boyd is my Grooms is my maiden name. Boyd is my last name. Geri Boyd. On Facebook is really all you can do, and I'm on there. WTPR W.T.P.R. I'm one of the board people that takes care of that whole organization. You can get to us on that way, and basically that's it. Or you can email me at music by Geri, Geri, music by Geri, Geri at gmail.com. That's really the best way to get a hold of me.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Geri, but I want you to leave the people with a final word. If there is anything that you would want people to take away from your life, your music, what you're doing in the world, what would that be?
I direct them to the audience of one.
Yeah.
Not about my legacy, not about my life. But I walked into a house yesterday with one of my renters, and she stopped me, and I just never met her before. I just met her. And I walked into the house, and she stopped me at the front door, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you a believer?"
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Yes, I am. Why are you asking me that?" And she said, "I need help." Oh, wow. And I said, "You do?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I need help." She said, "I need prayer, that I need help because I need to get back where I used to be, and I don't know how to do that.
Wow.
Will you help me? So I leave this with everyone. Your legacy, about how you walk, about how people view you. How did she know I was a Christian? I have no idea. I've talked to her on the phone many times. I've never met her in person. But when I met her yesterday, I felt like I knew her. And I asked her, I said, would you go? And after we sat down and we talked about things that bothered her, and I sat down and we prayed together. And then afterwards, I said, would you please just come to church with me tomorrow? And a lot of people don't feel like church is important, but I got to say this. Where do you take people to get filled up if you don't have a church body to go to? I just lost one of my roommates, and I couldn't have done it without my church body. Church, we can say we can pray at home and we can worship at home, and during pandemic, I get all that. But I was so proud to say, hey, come to church with me tomorrow and let's get some other people to pray for you and get the family of God and interested in you and to put you on the prayer list and things like that. So I think what I would leave with people is always remember when you're in church and when you're singing to the Lord that you are singing one-on-one with him. And it doesn't matter how you sound. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter if your hat's on crooked. It doesn't matter if your makeup's not on or if you're in shorts. It doesn't matter. You just know that you are one with God and he is listening to every word you say. And number two is the church body is so hugely important, intertwined together. And those are two things that I would love to leave with everybody.
Thank you so much, Geri, for a wonderful interview.
Thank
I definitely
you.
think you have left the right nuggets with the people that they can take forward in their life. People, you heard it here. Please make sure you connect with her. And thank you for being a part of another episode of Christian Writing and Speaking. Until next time.